the West Valley Water District Board of Directors to order. It is 6 p.m. in the evening on Thursday, September 5th, and we will start with a roll call of board members.
Thank you. Director Garcia? Director Moore?
Present.
Vice President Jenkins?
Present.
President Young?
Present.
Four present. Thank you.
Okay, next up we will do the Pledge of Allegiance by Director Moore.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
New video too or no?
No.
All right, and
Give me a second, Bones.
and this evening we're joined
So I can hear
with
them?
Pastor Daniel Vasquez. Pastor Vasquez, if you'll lead us in the opening invocation, please.
Hey, real quick. Come on, mic's on. Everybody standing. I can't hear nobody.
Can you hear us,
Can what?
Pastor?
Can't hear
Oh,
them.
we're muted.
Are they talking? Oh, they're not. They have their mics muted.
There you go.
Yeah, we're muted.
Can someone speak? Yeah, their mics
Sorry
are
about
muted.
that. We were muted there. So tonight we're joined with Pastor Daniel Vasquez. Pastor Vasquez, if you'll lead us in the opening invocation,
Yeah,
please.
yes. We can bow our heads and let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we gather today in gratitude for the West Valley Water District. Lord, we ask for your guidance as we discuss the challenges and opportunities set before us. Inspire our leaders with wisdom and unity, and help us to make decisions that promote sustainability and the well-being of all residents. May our actions reflect care for our environment and each other. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much.
All said.
Thank you.
All right. So we have closed session. Beforehand, we will do our public participation for closed session. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Members of the public may participate and give public comment in one of four ways: in person at West Valley Water District's Administrative Boardroom, via telephone by calling 888-475-4499, access code 840-293-7790, via Zoom with access code 840-293-7790, or via email to administration@wvwd.org.
Okay. Have we received any requests for public comment for closed session items?
We've received none in person or via email, and I don't believe we've got anybody on Zoom.
Okay. All right. If there's anyone in public or on the Zoom who would like to speak, please indicate at this time. All right. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public participation for closed session, and we will adjourn to closed session. Thank you. All right. Good.
No, God.
We good over there? All right, and we are back from closed session. We will have the report out from closed session. General Counsel?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. In closed session on items 1 with legal counsel existing litigation, and item 2 in regard to public employee performance evaluation, there were no reportable actions. In regard to the labor negotiation, item number 3, the board did give direction to establish the date of implementation and retroactivity for compensation adjustments to July 1, 2024. And now the board and the negotiators will proceed with the further negotiations toward an ultimate agreement.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so we have an agenda before us. Staff has asked that we remove business matter 11 and 13. Those will be taken up at a future board meeting. But I will entertain a motion to adopt as amended unless there's any other changes.
I motion that we adopt the calendar as given to us with the amendments.
The agenda.
The agenda, excuse me.
Okay, we have a first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. There's no discussion. We'll go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you. Director Garcia,
Yes.
Director Moore,
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins,
Yes.
President Young?
Yes.
That passes 4-0. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have public participation. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Members of the public may participate in one of 4 ways: in person at West Valley Water District's Administrative Boardroom, via telephone by calling 888-475-4499, access code 840-293-7790, via Zoom with access code 840-293-7790, or via email to administration@wvwd.org.
Okay, and I know June said that she wanted to speak, but have we received any other ones before I go to her?
No request via in-person or via email.
Okay. June, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, first of all, I would like to congratulate you on a well-done special district dinner. Everybody's talking about how nice it was, and I agreed. Very nice. But I have 2 really important announcements to make. First, the purpose of most dams is flood risk management, and that, of course, is true for Seven Oaks. But as a water person, we're interested in water supply and water quality. And the Center of Biological Diversity is interested in the critters and the environment and stuff like that. So Valley District and Western spent a lot of time and money getting the rights to the water behind the dam. And that has been a little bit of a problem over the years. In 2019, I believe it was, we had a major water year, and we thought we lost all of our juvenile suckers when the water control manual said it was time to release the water. The water had to be released downstream rather than capturing because it was so muddy. Anyway, we've been working for 7 years with Center for Biological Diversity in trying to make the water behind the dam and make the relationship with flood control one that is mutually benefiting and uses water to its highest possible use without risking the flood. That will always be the primary purpose of the dam. We have settled. We reaffirmed that flood risk management is the priority for the dam. There's an implementation by the local sponsors of 400 acres of habitat restoration for threatened and endangered species. And of course, that's important not only for the species, but also for our capital programs and your capital programs and anybody else who belongs to the habitat conservation program. We also have there's also going to be regular technical meetings held by a collaborative multidisciplinary working group with engineering, hydrologic, and biological expertise. And there have been modifications to the operation of Seven Oaks Dam releases to facilitate groundwater recharge. We are super happy about this. The releases will be limited to 500 CFS or less unless there's flood risk. So that's my first announcement. And I mean, this is so great. I mean, this is a big deal. My second announcement has to do with some negotiations we've been having with Southern California Edison. Up in the General Dam area and apparently a few other places, they have some hydroelectric plants that they are abandoning. And we've been working with a couple other agencies who want some of the hydro plants that are not in our district. And we have come to an agreement. Now, it still has to go through the regulatory agencies, but we have come to an agreement that we will take over those as soon as the regulatory agencies take their action and approve it. And this will help with water quality being released from that upper area. The water will divert from the dam rather than going into the dam and getting muddy. So we'll have better quality water. And the really nice thing about it is the cost to us is a negative cost. Edison's going to pay us to take over this stuff. And we're really excited about this too. So 2 very, very, very significant things for water in our area. And I was able to do that faster than I thought I could. So thank you. be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you so much, June. Because I believe there was some facilities in the Lido Creek area which were also
Yes.
part of that? Okay.
Yes.
So Valley would be taking over those as well?
No, I believe Fontana is doing those.
Okay.
We are working with Fontana on that.
Yeah, about to say,
disposition.
because we have just as much rights to it as they do, so I would hope that we're not being left behind on that one.
Yeah, and I don't have the details on that. I also know there's one plant out in the maybe San Antonio area that's LA County.
Okay.
And so we're working with those other parties related to those plants.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for June?
I think that's great news. It's very exciting.
Yeah, thank you, June, for those wonderful news.
Always happy to bring good news.
Yes. All
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the body at this time? If so, please indicate your desire to speak at this time. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public participation. And we'll go into presentations.
Thank you. Socorro has a presentation on the ASB-CSD meeting last Monday.
Should have fixed this earlier. I think we're fine. Yeah. I think that's fine. Sorry about those technical difficulties there. Good evening, President Young and members of the Board of Directors. This evening, I am pleased to share a recap of the Association of Special Districts, ASBCSD, dinner hosted by West Valley Water District on August 26th at Spoggies in Fontana. This was the first ASBCSD dinner that the district has hosted in more than 2 years, and the team at WVOD understood the importance of this event in showcasing West Valley as a member of the special districts and in the water industry. Internally, our team brainstormed ideas on the theme of the dinner by identifying priorities of the district and the board of directors. Nitrates being a top of concern for President Young and the board of directors brought us back to our advocacy efforts as an early supporter of the Removing Nitrate and Arsenic in Drinking Water Act, H.R. 7916, co-sponsored by Congresswoman Norma Torres. Our team worked with our federal lobbyists to reach out to Congresswoman Torres' office on being the keynote speaker for the August ASB-CSD dinner. And although her office expressed we would not be able to confirm her attendance without the relationships and resources Director Garcia had for her district in Fontana. So thank you, Director Garcia, for solidifying her invite and confirming her there. So kind of the recap of the event, the welcome sign. So in this slide, I want to highlight the venue, our coffee mugs that we give out to the guests, giveaways, and the beautiful car succulent that Paula and Alvia came together with the idea. Very popular choice. The dinner was special, and we had more than 100 attendees. The feedback was this event was the most attended event for ASB-CSD in a very, very long time. Some of the comments also made was that this was the best food someone has had in the last 10 years at ASB-CSD.
Wow, that's, yeah.
And we also have raffle prizes. So Director Garcia was one of the winners there.
Rigged.
And also some other fun snapshots throughout the event, highlighting just kind of how well received this event was. Some of the event feedback that we received from outside agencies was a great praise for West Valley Water District in this event. Some of what we heard is they did an amazing job, and I just don't know what to say. West Valley raised the bar,
It's nice to have West Valley back. They are stepping it up, and it's wonderful to see how eager they are and how involved they are. I want to personally thank my amazing team, Mary Jo Harley, Kimberly Cerrone, and Isabel Medina, for what they did, for coming together for this event, and our admin team with Elvie Dominguez and Paola Lara. I'm a believer that teamwork makes the dream work, and that night was a reflection of the great things our team is doing here at West Valley Water District. With the momentum, the External Affairs Committee, with the momentum of this event, I know it was our chair, Director Garcia, and as well as President Young has expressed us to work with CSDA in sharing this bill with its members. And we're currently working with Chris Palmer from CSDA, who is in contact with their DC lobbyists in reviewing the bill before they send it out to their membership. And that is all I have. Any questions?
Well, I'll just say, Socorro, I'm sad that you weren't able to be there with us because your staff did an amazing job. It was an amazing event. To all of them, to our admin team, to everyone who came out for the event. It was truly a great event. I know the Congresswoman, I think, was very pleased and very happy with the turnout and that so many people were there to hear about her legislation. And hopefully we will help her get a few more people to sign on to support the bill. But just really thank you to you and your team. You all put together an amazing event. And like I said, I'm just a little sad that you didn't get to actually see what a great job they did. And certainly thank you to Director Garcia for her help in helping get the event venue and everything kind of put together there. It's a really nice venue. I'm really pleased at what they did with the place. I can remember the old women's club and what it was like before they had air conditioning. And I've actually been in there in the summer with for events and when they didn't have air conditioning, and it was a little rough. So it was really nice. But yeah, the food was really, really good, even for those of us who can't eat a lot of carbs. But all in all, it was a great event. So thank you to your staff and to everyone who participated and helped out. It's really, really great. And the feedback, which I've been hearing, has been equally as wonderful. So thank you.
The only comment I have to say is that just shows that when you work as a team, we could do a lot of great things. And I see that West Valley Water District has raised the bar and shows that we care, and that when we put our minds together and we want to do something, we're going to do it, and we're going to do it great. And it took all of us to put it together, and the venue, the food, the presentation, John's presentation, just everybody was on point. But without working together, this wouldn't have happened. So thank you, everybody, for doing their part.
I'd like to tag on that Socorro, you and your team have done just an amazing job. Though you may not have been there, your presence was felt. And I'd like to thank the West Valley staff for who attended, and those who unfortunately probably could not, but have done an amazing amount of work to put it together, and it was very impressive.
Bravo, Socorro. One thing about leadership is that you don't have to be there for things to go off without a hitch. Mm-hmm. And that's a great example of your leadership with your staff and team. And I've always said it, you're amazing with this, and you're gifted for this, and we're proud of what you guys have done as a team. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And yes, I have a great team, and I'm very lucky to have them here, and we're going to continue doing great things for the district.
Thank you so much. All right, next up we have the consent calendar. We have 10 items here before us. If no one has any issue with them, I'll entertain a motion to adopt.
I motion that we adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Okay, we have a first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Any discussion on this? If not, we'll call the roll.
Thank you. Director Garcia?
Yes.
Director Moore?
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins?
Yes.
President Young?
Yes.
That passes 4-0. Thank you.
All right, so we'll go to business items. So item 11 was pulled for a future meeting. So we'll go to item 12.
Yeah, we have some changes to our vision plan carrier, and Haiti has the details.
Good evening, President Young and the board. As you read in my report, as part of our commitment to the board of directors and staff to continually research and find options to reduce costs, retain employees, and provide quality benefits, Keenan & Associates, who is our broker of record, went out and compared our vision plan to the open market and came back with the results of allowing us to transition into a dual choice plan that would afford staff the ability to select VSP, which is our current provider, or IMED as their vision providers. The transition would be seamless. It would allow, again, staff to choose between the two, and the enhancement that IMED brings to those that would select that would that they would be able to go to LensCrafters, America's Best Eye Care and Eyewear, and a vast array of other providers. In addition to that, we were able to reduce the copayment from $15 to $10, which includes an annual exam, the lens and frame frequency of every year, and then increase the frame and contact benefit from $150 per year to $200. Staff has met and conferred with the union to discuss the effects of the changes. They were in agreement with it. So we are presenting it to the board for review and approval. And if it is approved, then Keenan & Associates will be holding employee educational meetings for all employees to understand the enhancements of the providers. The overall cost savings is 31%, which is equivalent to about $7,000 a year. And there is a 2-year rate guarantee for the carrier. So that's a plus. That concludes my report.
Okay. Any questions for staff on the item? If there's no questions, I'll entertain a motion to adopt staff recommendations.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. If there's no discussion, we'll call the roll.
Thank you. Director Garcia?
Yes.
Director Moore?
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins?
Yes.
President Young?
Yes.
That passes 4-0.
Okay, so number 13 we also tabled, so we will go to item 14.
This item is for a new position, water conservation analyst. In committee meetings and to the board in general, the staff has expressed the need for a dedicated water conservation position, especially given the, I would say, aggressive water use efficiency regulations coming down from the state. This is known as making conservation a California way of life, among other challenges for water conservation. We've had presentations on this from Socorro and others. So tonight we are proposing a new position to be in place. This would replace another position, a current position, and a currently unfilled position, the Chief Water Systems Operator in meters. So Haiti has the details, but with your approval of this new position, our total staffing will remain at the board-approved level of 88 full-time positions. So no increase in staffing. We're trading basically one position for another position because we see a much higher need in the water conservation arena. So with that intro, Haiti has more details on this.
Yes, so the actual salary schedule already takes into consideration the salary range, which is reflected. We peg the range at 114, which is $72,550 to $119,018. This is a non-represented position. Again, we developed the job spec in conjunction with meetings with the engineering department, the public affairs, as they do work closely with compiling information that is a requirement for the upcoming water conservation. So we have a full understanding of what the need is, and the two departments will be developing the specific duties as they apply to each respective field. Again, it doesn't impact us Fiscally, there is a cost savings in the area of salary because the range is lower than what the chief water system operator was. Any other questions?
Any questions?
I do have a question. Maybe I missed it when you said it, but under what, in the org chart, what position, where would this fall under?
It's going to be under the Department of Engineering, and it'll be reporting to Rocky, the director.
And I see that they're doing, part of it is conservation strategies and advisory roles. How will they be working with external affairs?
So that is a question for Socorro. She is intricately involved and understands the dynamic of the position and how it's going to work between the two departments.
With the new regulation, good evening, Director Garcia. With the new regulations coming from the state, there'll be a part of it where there's like an outreach component to it. So we will work with the conservation analysts to work on that, on the marketing of the outreach, as well as when they got to the community, things like that. So we overlap, but they do most of the technical work.
So they
if I can add a little bit, this position is going to help develop some of our future conservation programs. And when we make those conservation programs, like rebates and things, available to our customers, they're going to help develop some of the educational materials that the public affairs group will be sharing and distributing to our customers.
But the position will be under you, Rocky?
Yeah, so the other component of this job is helping to comply with some of the reporting, conservation reporting, and water loss audits and those sorts of things associated in the water resource reporting.
Okay. I don't have an additional question.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to adopt the recommendation.
I motion that we adopt the recommendation of the staff.
All right, we have a first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. If there's no discussion, we'll call the roll.
Thank you. Director Garcia?
Yes.
Director Moore?
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins?
Yes.
President Young?
Yes.
That passes 4-0.
All right, so that's approved. So now that takes us to item 15.
Now, this is regarding board policy and procedure manual updates. So as directed, staff has been cycling through all of our various policies and procedures in the past year, making updates, implementing changes in state law, and overall seeking to develop and implement the best policies and practices across multiple departments and the entire district. The policy committee has directed us to do the same with the board policies and procedures manual. We've been working on a draft for several months and working with council and others. And Elvia has the current draft here today for the full board's consideration and a little PowerPoint to introduce the item. Elvia?
Thank you, John, and thank you, board, for allowing me to come before you. So this evening is going to be covering updates to the board policy and procedure. And just as a back note, this was an effort that was actually started last year in August with a review of Ordinance 86 that was started by our fearless leader, CFO, Bill, and BBK with Jeff. And so we kind of took that a little bit further and made it a little bit more comprehensive, and I'll give you a little bit of background on that. So what we did was we looked at Ordinance 86, Policy Procedure Manual, the existing one, and also Resolution 21834. If you look under, you're going to see those topics that are covered under those documents. Those underlined sections are where there's overlap between those three documents. And so we had 3 different places to look for information that kind of talked about the same thing, and it was a little inconsistent. So we looked at that, looked at some of the information that was provided by previously with Bill and with BBK to kind of dive deeper into the review of that. So the goal was to come up with a single comprehensive document that encompassed all of the information covered in those 3 documents. We wanted to incorporate the strategic goals, the mission and vision, which weren't in there previously. We also wanted to make sure to capture any legislative changes or any government or water code that needed to be included in there that wasn't. And we wanted to also include best practice. So we did want to go out to various other special districts to see what they did and look at best practice and make sure that that was covered. The resources and considerations that were used were, BBK, we had Henry Castillo that was assigned to us, as well as previous information that was given to us by Jeff in his review of Ordinance 86. We considered government code, water code, labor code, public employee retirement law, and information that was gleaned from CSDA and surrounding special districts. What we ended up with was one comprehensive proposed manual that encompasses all of the headings that you'll see in front of you there. So it's comprehensive. The idea is that a brand new board member or an existing board member could sit down and actually take that manual and understand their role, what the board does, and what the agency does, the relationships between the general manager, how meetings are held, how they're compensated, pretty much everything comprehensively. So that's what we ended up with. And this actually started in August of last year. We picked it up again like in April, and I have half the stack that's in my office with all of these little flags on it. So it was a lot of work. So thank you to John, thank you to Bill, specifically with Henry, a lot of input from various departments to come up with this. So here's just a look at some of the changes that were made and or clarifications that were made in various sections. The first of which is the boards and committees. We went in to clarify a little bit further and give committee descriptions which weren't in there before. So a brand new board member could sit down and understand which each of the committees and their scope and what they do. That they are subject to the Brown Act, that minutes are kept with each committee, which we'd started on doing, but now it's formalized. Under the board and GM, we included best practice, which is currently being followed in the working relationship between the general manager and the board and how they work. So as a brand new board member, you'd be interested to know kind of the ins and outs and what you do with the general manager and what that relationship is like. How to handle legal matters, so closed session, what that's about, what you do with the information that's given to you, material that's given to you in those meetings. Benefits, we remove some of the benefits that are no longer offered according to the public employee retirement law. Under president and vice president, we reinstated previous language which removed the term limits of the president. And under attendance at meetings, we did do a lot of work in including some of the outside agencies that we're currently attending a lot of meetings at under Schedule A. We included BIA, WEF, Southern California Water Coalition, AWWA, so that there'd be no issue with requesting attendance at those. Modified the board assignments also to include Rialto Basin Groundwater Council and IE Works, which we now have a board seat on. We included in Schedule D, a brand new Schedule D, for community events for our surrounding cities, the Rialto, Fontana, Colton, San Bernardino County events, Rialto, Fontana Chamber, and community events that are within the district's sphere of influence. So all of those are included now in a special section, Schedule D. What we also did was we included a form for requesting outside meetings and or trainings that I would help with your one-on-one meetings that we have every week. If you've got something that you want to attend, I'd get the information from you. I would fill it out, put it on the agenda, make sure that John knows that it's going to be spoken to, and at the following board meeting to request attendance for those. So that basically covers, the majority of the big changes that were done. Aside from that, there was a lot of consideration to including best practice, which was in there, but these are the main points of changes that were made. And like we had said in the staff report, red line version is available to you if you'd like it. Very difficult to read because there were so many red lines in it. We did speak to some of the original drafters, Greg, who had a lot of history behind why some of these things were put in. And so there was a lot of back and forth in that, and I wanted to thank everybody who gave input on that. So at this point, I'd like to open it up to discussion and or questions, but the recommendation now is to review the policy and procedure manual, provide direction, and or recommend approval. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so beforehand, I just want to thank Elvia, John, and Bill, Henry, everyone who helped participate in this, because as you said, we've been working towards tonight for over a year now, and I know there's been a lot of discussions, a lot of meetings with the executive committee, with the policy committee. So I do appreciate everyone's hard efforts because, yes, it was a little confusing that we had 3 different documents that had a little crossover in places between them. So I was very appreciative of all the hard work that all of you put in to help us kind of get that cleaned up and to put it all into one document. So I just, before we go to questions, I just wanted to thank you, Elvia, and everyone for all your hard work putting all this together, because I know it's been a lot of work, and we've had some pretty long meetings going over why things were written originally the way they were. So I do appreciate everyone's hard work on it. So with that, does anyone have any questions on the item for staff?
I just wish to make one statement. Thank you for everyone who put this all together. I think it just shows us another level of transparency for our agency, and that it shows how the community can look into and see what we're doing, and that we're very open. And I wish to thank everyone's participation for this.
Any other
Yeah,
questions?
I do have some questions. Can you go back to the previous slide, please? I know you mentioned that you do have a red line version that may be difficult for us to follow because there's just a lot of changes. But I thought maybe we could just go through each of these items that you said the sections were changed, and maybe we could just briefly go over what was there before and the new changes, or why they were changed.
Sure, I can try to cover it for you. So under boards and committees, currently the boards and committees section had, this is how you conduct a meeting, this is what the chair does during the meeting, the public comments, all of that. And it went into a lot of detail on this is how the minutes, this is what's included in the minutes, every single step by step. We condensed that by giving first a committee description, a condensed version of the requirements for conducting meeting, and that you're subject to the Brown Act, right? And we also referenced the Roberts Rule of Order. So we're following everything via Roberts Rule, which means we don't have to list every single little thing that you have to do in the minutes. So a lot of that was just kind of common sense changes to the structure of how it was worded. And also, we wanted to make sure to include the minutes of each of the committee meetings because we'd started doing that. We had announced that we were going to do it towards the end of 2023. We started doing it and then we stopped. So I wanted to make that formal so that it's understood that for each of the committees and the board meetings that we keep minutes. So there wasn't anything that was changed. It was more enhanced and made a little bit clearer. So that's the board and committee section.
So what section is that? Let me see here.
That would have been,
Starts on page 16 of 31,
Well-
221 of the packet.
And I would just add to that in the agenda packet, while it did say that the red lines were available upon request, part of that rationale was because, again, there's a lot of redlining because we're taking sections here, 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 and all merging them into one. So it's not like it's the same section every place, because in a lot of places we're taking it from one part of one document and now moving it to a different section so that it's all combined. So again, we didn't want to be too confusing because of the constant moving things between different sections. So it's not like the same section was the same place it was previously, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why I just like, it seems like in this slide, you're summarizing the important sections that were changed, and I just want to follow to see what it is that we have here and why we made the change.
Yeah.
Because as you mentioned earlier, it's been several reiterations that have taken over several months, and I just, it would be nice to see why it is that we got to that point where we changed these sections.
right. In this particular case, we found it very important to go into a little bit more detail on the descriptives and the requirements, because as a new board member, what we previously had was kind of thin on information, and somebody brand new sitting in this position wouldn't be able to very easily determine what our boards and committees do, and how to conduct meetings and their role in them, and the requirements, state requirements for us to be transparent. So we kind of condensed it into one comprehensive little section that's very easy to follow as a new board member.
Okay.
Okay. Under the board and GM, we did do some research with CSDA, and I did kind of a question to special districts to say, hey, what do you have as far as like information on board and GM form of governance? So they all sent back some recommendations, and we took that recommended language and kind of condensed it down to what made sense for our district in describing how we govern, how we operate the board and its relationship to the general manager and how they communicate back and forth. And it kind of goes into a little bit of detail. If there's operational issues, board members can bring that to the general manager, and he will then, send it out to resources here within the district and then respond back to the board. So all of that is lined out. But we thought it was important to kind of list specifically how the board and the general manager, interact.
So that's what section in the...
Section 4.
Okay, and so what I'm going to do is, just because I want to just do my due diligence here, is I want to see the difference between the original version and the new version. So I could just see the changes, because I know I wasn't going to go look through the track of redlining. I just want to see the old versus the new proposed. And so are you saying that they're not the same anymore?
So there was very little information there before.
Okay.
So this was just enhanced. So we brought in language that we had other special districts that included their best practice. And so we looked at various iterations from IUA, East Valley. I think we had maybe one other, I don't remember. We kind of looked at that language and said, this is what would make sense to us. And that's what we came up with.
So bear with me, please.
Sure. Yes, of course.
Okay, so yes, I see that section 4B4 is no longer section 4 of the new one. So
Yes. Yeah, there was no description as far as like what the type of, how we operated and how we governed here.
So that's a new section.
New section.
Okay. Okay, so
Okay.
then the next one would be legal matters?
Yes, and that kind of delve into, again, best practice in explaining to a new board member what closed session is, the information that's conducted there, the expectation that it remain confidential, material that's handed out at closed session should not be taken, home, that kind of stuff. So it's kind of just guidelines and instructions on what to do with legal matters, specifically like closed session.
Okay.
And we didn't have that before.
All right, thank you. How about benefits?
We removed or benefits that are no longer offered, and we based that on public employee retirement law. So these are benefits that, as of 1995, what is it? Or the not PEPRA. PERS, yeah. PERS removed certain benefits for board members specifically, and so, although in one area we do keep that information as far as like, per la law, it's no longer offered unless you were employed here before 1995, which we have nobody that's been employed on our board since before 1995. So we removed some of those sections that don't need to be there because those benefits are no longer
So
offered.
some of this goes back to 1995?
1995, yes.
So
It needed to be changed, huh, or
Yes.
updated?
Yes.
I don't see a section in the old version on benefits.
It was under Ordinance 86.
So
Ordinance
it
86
was
for
never,
compensation, yeah.
so it was never in the policy.
Never in the policy. So that's one of the ones that we took from Ordinance 86, brought over, and recommendations from PBK was to remove those items that are no longer offered to the board. There's no reason why we need to keep them in there, and so we condensed it into one little section under compensation for your benefits. You'll see compensation and benefits.
Let me see what you wrote on here.
Yeah.
What page would that be on this policy for compensations?
That would be,
Section 19, I believe, on the triple I,
yes.
for benefits.
Oh, okay. Right.
Yeah, benefits were also one of those things that was kind of, some of the compensation portion was in Ordinance 86, some of the benefits portion were in the previous policy and procedure manual. We combined it into one because it made sense to put compensation and benefits in the same section.
No, that's good because I don't think it was in the previous one.
No, it wasn't. No, it
It
wasn't.
wasn't.
We had that in Ordinance 86.
Okay.
So again, we're merging 3 documents
Yes.
into one, so again, it's not like the same place every time.
No,
Or
right,
sometimes
exactly.
it wasn't there at all because it was in one of the other documents.
No, that's
Exactly.
good because we're using it more like a training/reference manual.
Yes.
Well, yeah, we're trying to put it all into one unified place, as
Yes.
Elvia was saying, for just our ease, for ease of staff, so
Mm-hmm.
they don't have to keep referring to 3 different documents on what we can and can't do. So again, it's been something we've been working
And
towards.
we incorporated, although some of that language was already in there, we did incorporate water code,
Yeah.
all the other government, code, so that in the future, that that's something that can't be removed. Right, or
Well,
that's something to look at to see if there's any legislative changes in the future, which there may be. So we have like now little tags that we have throughout the document where we can go back and just confirm that's not changed, and so it'll make it
Well,
easier for us in the future.
And also looking at a lot of other agencies and what they did, Elvia. I don't know if you remember off the top of your head how many other agencies' manuals we were able to get a hold of in the end, but
Yeah, we had
we
something
were
like,
comparing.
like 10.
Yeah, we were comparing kind of what our language was to what a lot of them had. So I know we borrowed some language from East Valley and a few others here locally, as well as some up in Northern California, just trying to, again, have standard, regular language that is very comparable to what most other agencies have.
Yeah, and we found that a lot of the special districts that came back with some of the language, it was very similar. It's almost like everybody was asking each other, what language are
Same
you
thing,
using? And so it kind of made it easier for us to decide, okay, that makes easier for us to, recommend that because other agencies definitely are finding the same language. So we did our due diligence in researching with other agencies as well with a lot of the information.
Glad to hear.
Mhm.
Okay, the next one.
Okay, so for president and vice president, the previous language was reinstated that removed the term limits of the president.
So what did the language say in the last version?
Previously, it was that the president would serve a 2-year term and no more than 2 terms.
Now, 2 one-year terms.
2 1-year terms, sorry.
Essentially, we were kind of following the advice of the consultant that we had for the strategic plan that had pointed out how unusual our setup was. And in fact, when we did look at how other agencies do their selection and terms, we were the only one who did it the way we were doing it. And so we, again, trying to standardize everything and make it consistent with what the industry does. We kind of reinstated the prior language, which was more just fairly generic, that the board as a whole will select a president and vice president. Yeah. Thank you. Getting a little warm in here.
Yes.
I know, yeah.
80 degrees.
Yeah, and then on the last one, Angie, we probably had some of the most changes on that one because we really wanted to bolster.
Yeah, I'm not done
what
yet with
was
the
on the schedule.
president, vice president. I'm
Okay.
sorry. So I think that if I remember correctly, the reason why it was added was because we didn't want to have a president to be there for several years at a time. And so I think it was written in the manner that that it gives everybody it gives people an opportunity to be able to rotate, so that everybody at some point will be able to be a vice president. And then, as a courtesy, the vice president would eventually be the president. And I think that that's actually a good idea. Now that I see how it happened in the past, where we would have a president for 3, 4, 5 years at a time, that now it gets to rotate. And so at first I thought it was questionable, but now I actually like the fact that it makes it fair. And so maybe we can include some language in there that says if the vice president does not want to be president, then we can elect a new president. But I do agree with what we had said initially, that 2-year term should be a cap so that it gives everybody an opportunity.
Yeah, well, we can certainly have that in the discussion portion. We're still answering questions at this point.
Yeah, it's a discussion of why.
Well,
why
again,
we-
we're
I'm
we're
sorry.
not in the discussion section. This is still questions. You can certainly make those comments later if you want to go into more detail, but
Okay, my questions were
Yeah.
being posed to you, why we're making the changes.
Sure. Yes.
And so the question was, why are we changing it? Because, we added it at one point because because of, in the past, presidents were there for several terms.
Right.
So that's just a discussion again. I just wanted to see why we're making that discussion.
Right.
That-
So the recommendation was to put the previous language on. I think that was preempted by a comment that was made during the review of our strategic plan.
Okay.
So that kind of in a nutshell answers why that recommendation was made.
Okay. And
The attendance, so we can move on to the attendance at the meetings, and then we'll conclude if you don't have any other questions. So really, for attendance at meetings, modifications were made to include a lot of the same associations where we're attending a lot of events, so that we don't have to consistently come back and ask at board meetings, for board to approve attendance at these events. Same thing for assignments. We currently have additional assignments at Rialto Basin Groundwater Council and IE Works, which have been there in the past. They just haven't been incorporated into the manual. So now we're including them here. Now, this was also part of Ordinance 86, which we now moved over into the manual. This is another one that's a brand new section in the manual, but was always in Ordinance 86. Now it's combined. And including, there was a lot of discussion back and forth that we do so much outreach that we should include a separate schedule for events within the surrounding area, which is why we developed a brand new Schedule D. And that includes, events in Rialto, events in Fontana, events in Colton, San Bernardino County, and also an all-inclusive term or phrase of community events within our district sphere of influence. And then that way that allows you the flexibility to be able to attend these events and not have to come back and ask permission from the board.
Okay, so as part of my comments, in addition to the reinstatement of the previous language, as my comment that I would like it to stay as is, to provide fairness and have some to give everybody fairness. I would want that language to stay because that's the way it was proposed originally. As a comment, I actually think that that it wouldn't allow the current vice president to not be president if that changes, and so I was already seeing a change gonna happen, so I wouldn't want that to change now. I do want to add some of the meetings of the attendances. I looked at the Schedule A for outside meetings, and I do want to add meetings with officials, like for example when we meet with the city council or board of supervisors and any officials that are within the sphere of influence, that we don't have to have an attendance request brought to the board for us to have a meeting with the mayor, a meeting with a county supervisor. I mean, I feel that the meetings that we have with them have proven to show that we have increased our relationships with the city and the representatives. We have seen them come to our Earth Day events. We've gotten money from them for our activities, and without having these relationships with our elected officials, we wouldn't be having the events and their attendance and people coming to what. We wouldn't be having that meeting and everybody showing up to come see Congresswoman Norma Torres if we wouldn't be having these on-call meetings with elected officials without having to ask the board, can I meet with them? So I would like to include that as as a outside meeting in Schedule A that does not have to get approval by the board.
Yeah, if I may, just real briefly on that issue, a number of years ago, the law was changed to require special districts to have policies for what will be reimbursed and paid for a per diem. And the concern at the time was that districts had policies that were overly broad, that said meetings with outside groups or things of that nature. And what at the time was the concern is that the exception would swallow the rule. And so I think from my perspective, having a general category of meetings with public officials wouldn't be detailed enough for someone to look at the policy and say that kind of gives you an open door to go to these meetings. Not that anyone's doing this, but you really need to list out exactly which groups, which cities are going to be pre-approved, as opposed to a general category of meetings with elected officials.
Okay, so then my recommendation would be that we would include elected officials from the city of Fontana, from city of Rialto, Colton, people who represent our sphere of influence for the West Valley Water District.
Yeah, and once again, I mean, that just from a legal point of view, that is a pretty broad swath of officials, right? It's city councils, it's board supervisors.
What would you like me to do? Name them by person? Because they can change.
Well, if I could maybe chime in real quick, this wouldn't restrict a board member from ever meeting or discussing with a fellow elected official. This is simply governing what meetings would be constituted for compensation purposes only. So it would not restrict anyone from having meetings with anybody. And I know a lot of us as elected officials interact with other elected officials all the time. It's just more of a question of if we're going to be billing the ratepayers for said meetings, then we do need to show how it is relevant to the district's mission. And that's why we also created the form that Elvia worked on, so that if there is something which you feel is warranting it, we can put it on the agenda, we can discuss it. But we chose not to include that just because not all of us bill for those. And even then, it's more of a question of fiscal responsibility to the ratepayers that we need to be mindful of what we're asking for compensation for. And again, there's nothing to prevent any of us from having conversations with elected officials in any of our functions or any of our meetings. And I know I've met with many people over the time, and I don't always put it on, down for compensation, because most of the time it's generally a quick conversation most of the time. And, really it doesn't, in my mind, constitute something which I should bill the ratepayers for. Now, there's always going to be exceptions, but that's why we created a process by which we can consider special occasions. Now, one of the things which we did do, and one of the things which I was very much pushing for with my colleagues, is to really grow the list of what is acceptable. So Schedule A actually has several new agencies that weren't previously listed, as well as we also added that Schedule D to cover all of the city and local events, because those ones were not covered under the prior language. And again, it was very nebulous to legal's direction as far as that, right? The way it was written before was very wide open, and it really did need to be tightened up as far as what constitutes a meeting, and also creating a process by which, if there is something outside of these four schedules, that the board member has an ability to put in a request for us to consider and approve. And in most cases, I don't really imagine we would turn it down if it made sense. But just having a clear, transparent process to the ratepayers that, we are taking our duty as fiduciary responsibility for the ratepayers' funds, that we are, not only doing our work as board members, but that we're compensating appropriately. So I do want to just clarify that for you, Director Garcia, that, you know, it's not that you would be forbidden from talking to other elected officials. We're just simply saying that if you want to bill for it, we would ask that there be a water nexus and that it be approved by the board.
Okay, to continue my discussion as chairwoman of External Affairs, I am constantly talking with external, with elected officials on events or activities that need to occur or that are occurring that would require me to have to bring it to the board for me to be able to talk to them about something that would delay and possibly not make it to the discussion that we need to have because I need approval from the board to talk to them about
Well,
something.
that is, that
I'm
again
sorry,
is
I am not
true,
I
ma'am.
am not done. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So therefore, if I have to talk, if they are requesting a meeting regarding an event that they want us to participate in, and they want to have a meeting with me to discuss about it, or they want to talk about, you know, us wanting to be there and have our presence there with water, and they want to have a meeting with me, what you're saying is that you are preventing External Affairs from being there because we need approval for you to be able for me to meet with the elected official. Is that what you're saying?
No. Again, let me repeat myself as you are clearly twisting what I had previously said. You can meet with anyone you want, anytime you want. The only thing in question here is what is billable to the ratepayers.
Well,
Is
if
that
I-
correct, Madam Clerk? As far as the way the language is written, we're only talking about what is billable, not whether or not someone is forbidden from talking to anyone else.
Whether or not you will be compensated for that meeting, that's all.
Yeah, that's all that's in discussion.
So the board is saying that for me to talk about external affair events with elected officials, you do not want me to get compensated for it unless you approve it. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying that the category is too broad for a pre-approved meeting.
Yes.
In fact, Schedule D is new, and I think that goes to the end of the envelope in terms of having a description that is not too detailed but not too general.
It's like,
May I speak?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I know we have a big discussion, but I want to go back to what I said earlier, that I believe this manual is very transparent and the team has done a lot of work. Like to make a motion that we accept the procedure manual as given to us.
okay, we have a first. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Wow.
we have a second. Further discussion, I'm sure.
I'm very disappointed that the board is deciding that, number one, that at some point, Greg, you brought in the language that said that everybody would have a rotating basis so that everybody becomes an opportunity to become vice president and president. And now you're taking that opportunity. That I'm very disappointed that the board is doing that. Secondly, the board is now going to limit how we do meetings for external affairs, and there probably will be changes as to how much presence is out there, because now it has to be brought to the board. And just know that that is a decision that is being made by the board, not by me. So I will not be voting on this. I'm going to vote no.
Any other
I have a
discussion?
comment. I just have a comment just to make sure for clarification. So Cora, you're on the public affairs team, right? Right? So I just want to make sure I understand the way things roll. And you can contact the officials if you need to.
We contact officials, but we always let the committee know and
Yeah.
the board know and direct from
Yeah,
GM.
but But yeah, but you're the contact person usually for that kind of stuff. For the West Valley face.
Internally, yes.
Yeah, okay. Just want to make sure we have some means. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Sakura, can you just wait a minute? How many times, not counting, have representatives showed up because I was their point of contact?
I mean, for the city of Fontana, we've had a great representation for Earth Day, and I do commend, I do your interactions in the community and being out there in the chamber and the city. So with that, I do think we have a very strong relationship with the city of Fontana with your outreach in that sense.
Okay. And so is the board supporting that we have a president for years at a time just because there's no term limit anymore? Is that what the board wants? Because that's the reason why the board put that information in the policy 2 years ago, because there was always, one board member who became president for years, and it seems like that board is moving towards that direction, and it really disappoints me. I just want to just say that. There's no equity here.
Dan, I believe you had something else, or did you?
Negative. I made a motion.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I thought there was some back and forth. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll call the roll.
Director Garcia,
No.
Director Moore,
Yes.
Vice President Jenkins,
Yes.
President Young.
Yes.
That passes 3-1.
Okay, all right, so moving on, we have, and this will be, thankfully, the last time we'll have to do this, because part of the change will eliminate the need to do these meeting attendance reports. But for one last go, team, if there was any outside meetings that you do need to report, for one last go. If not, we'll go into committee reports.
Since I have some board well, they're all here. Let me see. On the since the last board meeting, I've met with Alvy on the 21st for our admin meeting. Is that something that we need to put also on this new policy, because it's not in there?
It's for external meetings, so this would be internal meetings with us. I don't think that would be required, no.
And after
I'm sorry, I'm talking to Alvia, please. On the 22nd,
Who's the chair here, ma'am?
I'm sorry, we're supposed to be professional. Isn't that part of the
Well,
policy?
and you were cutting me off as the chair, so
I'm talking to her.
just watch
Please
yourself.
follow the policy that you
Please.
just approved.
Please continue, ma'am. And be
I'm going to
respectful.
walk out. I'm feeling offended. This is what you want.
Any other meetings to report, gentlemen? If not, we'll go to board committee reports.
The policy committee met, went over the, updated all the policy and procedures. Staff developed a spreadsheet to track the status of all the various policies. They reviewed the draft of an updated board policy and procedure manual, as we just discussed, and record retention schedules updates. Staff has updated the record retention schedule to incorporate records retention regulations for all departments. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
All right. I'll start with safety and technology, which I sit with Director Moore. We received an update on the ERNI, which is pretty cool, by Joe, which is the Emergency Response Network of the Inland Empire, which is going to kind of restart. Because of COVID, it was down for a bit, and I'm kind of excited to see that stuff, that we participate with emergency in the different districts. And I'll move forward that we're developing a work plan for support in our strategic plan, and plans will include development of an IT master plan in addition to projects of tool boosts cybersecurity. And then on the external affairs, which I had one meeting, which was great. The committee received updates on the community events attended, especially we had reported the ASPCD. And our annual poster contest is coming up, which I did see today in our West Valley News in my bill. And I saw it did say award. Socorro, does that mean a compensation award? Okay, thank you. I can't remember. And I received our legislative principles and our social media reporting, which I joined X, I think now, and Instagram, sorry, excuse me. And I'm not very good at either of them. And we're releasing an RFP to develop a list of qualified consultants who can provide public outreach and communication support for Prop 218. And that's the end of my committee reports.
Okay, I have a quick report from the policy committee. So we obviously discussed the fairly big policy updates that we were just discussing, but we are also discussing and will be coming at our next meeting. Elvia and the team have been working on an updated records retention schedule. So I do want to thank them for, once again, their hard work on putting all that together. So that will be coming up at the next meeting. And that's all I have for that. And you did that one, so. All right, so board member reports. Anything, gentlemen?
First and foremost, I like to acknowledge that before our next board meeting, we will have September 11th will be acknowledged again. I recall where I was and how it affected our nation. And I think keeping the country in our prayers continues. Secondly, I like to acknowledge Director Garcia, because no matter what happens here, we still care for one another, and we only want to see the best for the district. Whether she walked out or not, it doesn't matter. That I still care about her, and her opinion matters. But we also know as adults, we have only the best interest of this district and the employees as well. I just wish to acknowledge that.
Well, besides all what you said, there was a shooting in a school. Was it yesterday?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yesterday, and just that you would keep those families in prayer, those teachers in prayer, but even locally pray for our kids that are here. That could be anywhere. And I try to think about, I know about the right to bear arms, but some of this stuff is getting outrageous when 10-year-olds and 14-year-olds are having access to guns like this. But just keep those in your prayer. Keep those kids in your prayers. Keep everybody in your prayer. 'Cause it's a crazy world. It's a crazy world when you got to send your kids to school and worry about them. When they have a cell phone because they have to have it for safety. So it's a crazy world. But that's on my heart tonight.
Thank you, Calvin. I will forgo any comments tonight. I think enough has been said tonight. So let's just go to General Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I have updates on staffing, recruitments, and the strategic plan. Starting with staffing and recruitments, 3 updates. First, for the Purchasing Inventory Specialist 1, this was Cliff was in this position before. We interviewed 5 candidates on Tuesday, made a selection. The successful candidate has accepted our offer and is currently in the pre-employment process. The target start date is Monday, September 23rd. Second update is for facilities maintenance technician. This is Chris. And we interviewed 8 candidates last Thursday. 3 of these are returning on Monday for a second interview. And finally, Chief Financial Officer. This was in his bill, who is retired. But staying with us, of course. We appreciate that again. COF is helping us out with this recruitment, and the position is being widely advertised right now and open for applications until October 7th. So looking forward to seeing those. Finally, on the strategic plan, I've had additional meetings with all the departments individually, and we all came together for a group meeting last week, and we're getting close to the final work plan product, have some final edits, and we have a detailed set of goals, looking like well over 100 work plan goals, all towards achieving those 8 strategic goals that the board has set forth. And we've already started working on many of these. I will, at our next board meeting, I'll have a presentation on this, take a quick look at those 8 strategic goals, the work plan goals, take some time to elaborate on some of them, and of course, board review and comment. And that's all for me tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Legal?
I'll pass tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you. All right, and then just a quick look at the calendar.
Yep, there we go. Just a quick note, next week, we've got several of our board members that are going to be at CSDA Annual Conference. We will have an executive committee meeting on the 10th, I think we decided, that will be phone conference, as President Young will be here, and Vice President Jenkins and General Manager Thiel will be at CSDA. Do want to note that HR committee was going to be on the Monday of CSDA, so that's been moved to the 17th. Move to the next slide, please. Next month will be pretty busy as well. Standard meetings, Bloomington Mac. Next slide, please. I do want to note that for November, we have a proposed poster contest winter celebration for the 14th to see if that would be something that the board would be okay with holding. Only because the 21st is going to be closer to Thanksgiving. It's going to be harder to get students in here. And so the thought was that it's probably better to have it before the week of Thanksgiving. So just going to throw it out there and send an invite to the board members to see if that's going to be okay with you all.
It's a little far out, but
We're making plan. We're always planning for the future. We're always thinking ahead.
I'm okay with it.
yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, and then actually, if you can just go back to October, that executive committee on the 29th, we might need to look at moving that one. Maybe we can do it the week before, because I'll be at a conference starting on the 26th through the 30th.
Yeah, we can definitely move the executive committee. The review of the draft agenda has to happen at some point during that week. So maybe what we could do is have Vice President Jenkins review it in your stead. Up to you.
Well, or I can look at it via email. I'll just be out of state at a conference.
Okay,
so,
well, we'll move the executive committee and have you review the draft on the 29th.
Yeah, well, we can talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That, or I can just Zoom in and connect with you guys that night.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, all right. Anything else? All right, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.